I think we might be able to use our PEG fees if we put it on channel 11.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and suspend the workshop meeting for the moment to go into a special meeting. I'll call that meeting to order. I'm going to suspend the roll call and just let the record note that all members of the council are present. Purposes, we have only two items of business in front of us this evening. One is a discussion and hopeful passage of a resolution in support of two transportation projects that Camas currently has on some lists, and then also a vote and reaffirmation of RTC representation for the remainder of 2011. So those are the two items that you've got. We have a draft resolution for you on the projects. But before we get to that point, are there any members of the public that would like to address the council before we get started on these items? Mike?
Are we supposed to address the council on this, what's coming up now, or what we just listened to?
On what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Okay. Any other members? Don?
Don Boland, 32934 Southeast 20th Street. And I would like to, I guess, support your decision here on the transportation person that's going to be representing you. And I would like to indicate I feel strongly that Mr. Shoemaker would do a very good job in representing the council as well as the city, and for a couple of, well, I guess my reason one is I know that when I can see Dave will follow the rules. And like all of us, he has some definite opinions. But I've also seen at the committee, he will evaluate other people's opinions and give them an honest shake. And for what I've observed, I think, in this area of transportation, that's probably one of the things we really need now, is to look at the various alternatives and make a good decision for the city and the public. I think Dave would do a good job at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any other folks wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the council to take up discussion in regards to the draft resolution that we have in front of us regarding the two projects that Camas has on the 2012 federal appropriations list.
I move that we pass the resolution as presented.
Second. Shall we read it first?
Yes, please.
Why don't we read it first?
All right.
A resolution to read it by title only.
Or by acclamation?
A motion to read the resolution by title only.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to read by title only. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Sorry?
It's considering that this was not public information, it might be worthwhile for us to actually read it. So I would urge the council to vote no on this specific vote so that we can just
I'll rescind my motion and read the resolution.
Why don't I start out with reading the resolution?
Okay.
Whereas Camas has two significant transportation projects on the Regional Transportation Council's adopted list, and whereas the city of Camas has a long, successful history in planning and community development, and whereas Highway 14 is recognized statewide as one of the most dangerous traffic corridors in terms of fatalities, and the Port of Camas, Washougal, the City of Washougal, and the City of Camas have been working collaboratively for 7 years to secure funding for Highway 14 public safety improvements, and whereas the three public entities have successfully secured approximately $59 million towards Highway 14 safety improvements, and whereas the public safety improvements needed for the Slough Bridge connecting Lady Island with Camas are unfunded by $20 million, and whereas the City of Camas has been successful in attracting and retaining businesses for the betterment of the community, whereas the City of Camas desires to continue its economic development efforts and recognizes the importance of extending Northwest 38th Avenue into Vancouver's Southeast 20th Street and Southeast 192nd Corridor, And whereas the city of Washougal is supportive of these efforts by the city of Camas in furtherance of economic development opportunities and safety for the East County area, now therefore be it resolved by the council of the city of Washougal as follows. The city of Washougal expresses its support and commitment to these two significant transportation projects adopted by the council and approved by this mayor this day.
I move that we approve the resolution as read. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Comments? Yes, John?
I know we don't have legal counsel here tonight. I was hoping I could get maybe our former auditor. My business benefits directly by this 20th Street corridor going through. Is this appropriate for me to vote yes or no?
If you're personally benefiting, I would say you should rescind yourself.
Because, I mean, my business, I mean, obviously, traffic impact and the increase in fees, increase in traffic. I was saying that my business directly would benefit from this transportation project going on the 20th Street because of our location at 192nd and 20th. So I was asking if I can abstain from this vote due to that. And so.
I would think that would be the most prudent thing to do.
Thank you.
Minor point, but I would suggest the correct term is recuse.
Recused?
Other questions from council? Okay, we've got a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign the resolution. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Abstain.
Recusing? Thank you for that item. Second item that we have for this evening is RTC board representation. As you all know, Councilman Shoemaker has resigned his position on the RTC board. Camas Council met earlier this evening. There were 3 names put forward to the Camas Council for consideration as the RTC board representative. Those names were myself, Molly Costin, and Jennifer McDaniel. Camas did act on those this evening, and in a vote of 7-0, recommended Molly for the RTC main representative and recommended Jennifer at a 7-0 for the alternate. So our duty before us this evening is to vote among this council for our half of that, that action so that we can appropriately inform RTC of who the representative and alternates would be. John.
Any discussion? This is the problem that we're running into because we have not sat down with Camas to outline rules that will govern these appointments. Camas goes 7-0 for Ms. Costin. If this council goes for another council member, there's nothing that's in the bylaws that tell us how to remedy that.
As far as a tie?
Huh?
As far as a tie?
No. As far as if the majority of this council goes for one particular candidate versus a 7-0 over in Camas, you have 2 councils with 2 different appointments. So the bylaws don't remedy that.
Yeah, what we're, and keep in mind, this is an assumption on our part, where we're assuming is they have 7 votes, you have 7 votes.
But that's, you're making that guess, that's not in the bylaws.
There's nothing in the bylaws.
Huh?
There's nothing in the bylaws.
I know there's not, that's why we needed to sit down with Camas before this vote to outline and get written into our code exactly what the process is. We don't have a process here. And so, you know, we've got council members that may go and serve. How do they vote? Do they vote how Camas wants them to vote or how Washougal wants them to vote? There's nothing on the rec books that tells what the proper protocol is. And so this is the problem we're running into because we have not sat down with Camas in regards to how does this thing function. And we're going to continue to run these problems year after year until we have that discussion. So that's my...
And I think following this meeting, we're going to have a meeting to try and iron those out. I'm not here to say that we're going to solve it. I'm here to say that you're going to have a couple, 3 suggestions come forward of how we move forward on those. It's not necessarily even something that necessarily the 2 councils can solve, because you could have the same problem. You all could decide you're going to try and solve it one direction, they could decide another direction. In the meantime, RTC and CTRAN can say, our bylaws are our bylaws, you all figure it out.
And
So,
then we're
even-
at stalemate again.
Yeah, and I don't know that you're at a stalemate.
Mr. Mayor. From my recollection of the background documents on this, the determination of the representation is not from our code, but it's actually from the RTC bylaws.
It's in the bylaws and the interlocal agreement both.
Right, which say that the cities will determine, and
It says the agencies shall select.
The governing body.
Right.
No, it says the agencies shall select.
Okay, so it doesn't specifically I mean, when you have two different agencies that are sharing this power, it doesn't give anything more specific on how the agencies will select.
You're correct.
We are in a little bit of no man's land here if we decide on different things. But one thing I would recommend is that we disregard completely 7-0 versus 4 versus 3. When a majority has selected the outcome, it is selected for that agency. And unless we were one large agency with 14 members, you know, that, I don't think that would really be relevant. What's relevant is the city of Camas has chosen a slate, and tonight we will be determining our slate. And if the two are different for whatever reason, then the cities should negotiate one way or the other with how we're going to divvy up that representation. But yeah, my recommendation is not to worry about how many members in one city voted one way or the other, because that wouldn't really make sense necessarily, especially with regards to how votes work generally.
Why would it not make sense?
Well,
I guess when I look at the underlying pieces, which are part of one simple sentence that says the agencies will select, if you took past practice, the two mayors would select. In this instance, the two mayors are saying, we'll let the legislative body select. You each have a vote. There's 14 of you. Let's see where it goes. I'm not sure why, if you would, having a super meeting per se to select those would not be a good option.
It's one of the two options that MRSC suggested to us. They acknowledge that this is uncharted. There's no legal or statutory precedent for joint agency representation and decision-making. One of their first suggestion was essentially, since it's two communities that are being represented, that there basically be a super meeting, whether they can occur at exactly the same time or it's two separate votes, but it's a super body of 14 individuals. The other was to agree to pass the responsibility back and forth on some schedule, and when it's one's turn, the other stays out of it by virtue of that agreement, and we talked about that as being a possible future solution. And then they said another way to do it is what happens in very small communities when there's a tie vote, they flip a coin. So he actually suggested that as well, and I didn't really look to that solution. So I think short of an interlocal agreement that specifies how it will happen, my sense, based on the advice of the attorneys at MRSC, is that a super meeting is the appropriate course of action. But it's not required. It's a course of action.
John?
You know, if this was being properly done, seeing this as our representative that we're sending, you would think that we would have the first vote and then Camas would follow suit. But it almost seems like we're being dictated to. And, you know, at the end of the day, if we're having one representative from one particular city representing another city on the board, the city that's selecting the council member, obviously, I believe, should go first. Not Camas telling us how they would like it, and then all of a sudden we've got to, you know, like it or not, we're going to lump it. I think it stinks.
Other comments from council? Sans anything else, the way that Camus went about their voting this evening was through a roll call method. Each individual council member saying who they would prefer in the, starting out with the main representative position, and then went into the alternate position itself. I'll make the job easier, and I'll, because of the vote that happened earlier, good, bad, or otherwise, remove my name from the consideration.
Will you entertain nominations beyond what you recommended from the floor?
At this point, I would say no, only because Paul and I agreed that we would give a time certain for both councils to put forward any names of those individuals that were interested in serving on the board. And we did it that way purposely, not through nomination, but the individuals themselves putting their names forward, so that we knew we had people who, one, were interested, and two, had the time to devote to the board itself, so.
And what names came forward?
Molly's, Jennifer, and my own.
When that email you put out a week ago, that was, if anybody's interested, just email me back.
By noon today, and Paul said the same one. I think it was telling that their council chose not to put any of their names forward, feeling that they wanted to make sure that the representative for RTC stayed within this legislative body, and none of them put their names forward. Jennifer?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. It was an interesting hour. We passed the microphone around and we were interviewed, basically. And there were some interesting questions. I think that in the end, we got some positive feedback from the council members saying that it was a difficult decision. And I really appreciate that, because considering Molly has 3 years on the RTC, for me to even be in the running, you know, in their minds, I felt, you know, very flattered, for different reasons, I'm sure. But, I mean, there were strong arguments for all of us, you know, experience, enthusiasm, clout. So it was an interesting afternoon, to say the least. But I would actually encourage my fellow council members to vote for Molly Kostin, and I'll tell you why. So I would really, really like to see some solidarity in this room, and I would like to see some people get behind her and not show Camus that we're still torn apart on this issue. And then I really want to see us dig into some guidelines as far as, you know, how we're going to go forward with this. What's going to happen next year? Because Molly did, you know, make a statement that this is a tough job she does, and she's kind of getting tired of it. And maybe this would she would like for this to be her last year, possibly. So, you know, I just would like for us to settle this, and I don't want to settle it with us over here and them over there. I really like to get together, whether it's the city managers, city administrators, mayors, council members. I'd like for all of us to figure out a solution, because this is not benefiting anyone, what we're doing here. So.
Rod?
Do you need a motion, or are you going to do a personal vote? I mean,
If we're okay doing a roll call similar, the intent of Mayor Dennis and myself was to try and work this as similarly as possible, so we didn't have two completely different processes.
okay.
And try and find something that was as close as possible.
What I'd like to say, though, is I would like to very much agree with Jennifer, that I think that Molly needs to go back on that committee, because she has the experience. I really like the idea that there's somebody that's an alternate that kind of gets an idea, get up and running. And then I'm on John's side. Let's get this thing figured out before we go through this again next year and do it. So for the interim period of time, the experienced person that's been on it and knows what's going on down there, let's go with that. Get somebody else online that's kind of watching the process go through and get up and running. But let's get these things worked out, John. I'm on your side on that. Let's get this decision-making process figured out.
Dave?
I disagree for two reasons. One is that since December that we know of, there's been an effort by the Camas Council, the RTC chair, and the RTC chair to retain Councilmember Costin on the council. These positions were intended to be training positions. They're supposed to be rotated every 2 years. We're talking about a 4th year for Councilmember Costin. They're not intended to be homesteads, and that's what's going on here. So, yes, experience is a wonderful thing, and lots of people should get that experience. That's the intent of having a recommended 2-year duration in these posts. So, my recommendation would be that we need to get somebody new there. Thank you.
Paul?
Jennifer and I had the opportunity a few years ago to serve as the Meshuggah representatives on the Community Center Development Committee, which, as you may have heard the sigh, was a bit of a strain. A number of us have worked very hard over the past few years to try to repair the estrangement between the two communities. We are East County. In a lot of ways, we're in the same boat. And I don't want to be speaking for Jennifer, but I heard the things that many of the things that she said rang very clearly for me, that it's important here that we have a relationship with Camas that is based on mutual trust and respect. And I think it's my personal view that moving forward, for lack of a better term, the election of Councilmember Costin as the East County RTC member and Councilmember McDaniel as the alternate will help that process along. We have a lot of things going on with potential partnerships with Camas that are very much in our interest. And I would hate to throw any of that on the rocks. And so I've said my piece.
John?
Yeah, I'm not gonna let you paint us in a corner like that though, Paul. This isn't about solidarity with Camas. We are solidly behind Camas when it comes to our public safety, with our fire department, when it comes to economic development. We are partnering with them. A vote to not send Molly Costin to the RTC board in no way is a vote saying we're not wanting to cooperate. It's just a vote saying that Meshuggah in its own right has the ability to make up its own mind and choose who they want to represent on that board. And so to say that a vote not to be with Molly Costin is somehow a vote against Camas is not true. It is a vote just saying that we have different desires, and I think that that's okay and it's healthy.
Okay. Other comments? See none. Jennifer, can you run down the roll call?
Do primary first or both?
Primary one first, and if you would, just between Molly or Jennifer, let us know which one you would prefer to be the main representative.
All right. Councilmember Morris?
Molly.
Councilmember Greenlee?
Molly?
Councilmember McDaniel?
Molly?
Councilmember Delavar?
Jennifer.
Councilmember Russell?
Councilwoman McDaniel.
Councilmember Shoemaker,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
McDaniel.
Okay. McDaniel?
and Councilmember Coaston.
Molly.
It's 4-3 Molly.
Okay.
And-
And can we take by acclamation Jennifer as the alternate?
Yes.
Unanimous consent.
Anyone in disagreement? Thank you for going through that. Dave, would you make sure and make a note to get the meetings rescheduled with Mayor Dennis and the council in the next week or so? Okay, with that done, public comments, any comments from the public before we close the special meeting? Martha?
Gives me a chance to stand up. First of all, thank you. Martha Martin, Washougal, for the recording. Thank you for going through this process and having this lively discussion. It's very helpful to hear everyone's opinions. I heard some things that I'm a little confused about. I heard that there is a bylaw that's really vague, and initially this bylaw was used to change the process that you had already put into place and vote in another person.
No.
No.
Martha, what there is, just to make sure that everybody's clear, when the RTC was formed, there
We're talking
were,
about your process here.
there is no process here.
I know, that's what I mean. That was saying there was no process. So because there was no process, this process was used to change everything and vote in another person. That was my understanding.
You've lost me, but
Okay, I guess the point is, on the one hand, the bylaw doesn't work, on the other hand, it does. It's very confusing, and I think you're right, you need to go back and revisit this with the city of Camas. I think that's really important. However, you already did that once, and you didn't go back and talk to the city of Camas, and now you're saying you are gonna talk to the city of Camas. I guess my point is, do it one or the other. If there's a leader in this process that has said, we need to go talk to the city of Camas before we have this vote, that should occur before, not now. That's my point. Then maybe this wouldn't happen. Does that make sense? Okay.
and that was certainly considered.
All right, I understand that. I understand that. My second point is that I appreciate that you're doing this, and I hear that the city of the thoughts about the city of Camas dictating to the city of Washougal. I went to the workshop this evening, and I listened to their discussion, and what they said was, they want to be seen as one community. That was stressed. And I think I heard that here this evening from a couple of you, is that, yes, we want to work together with the city of Camas, not in opposition. So if they had a chance to vote first, because their meeting was at 4:30, and ours is at 6:30, that's just the way it was set up. I don't think it's somebody dictating to you. You get to choose your individual votes. Nobody's telling you how to vote. You can vote on your own conscience. The Camas vote shouldn't sway you. You vote the way you vote, and you have your representative. So it's one community for everything. We don't see it that way, and we hope that you can too. It's really important. Don't mean to lecture you, but I think sometimes we sit and listen to you, and we want to say something, and so I get kind of pent up. So I apologize for a little bit of passion here. Or as Michael says, political theater. So thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Yes, Ken?
Ken Hadley, 4011 F Circle, Washougal. I want to mention that the City Council of Camas had the same concerns as some of the members here about the lack of process and agreement on how people would be selected, how they would decide to vote in the interests of both communities. So they have the same feelings that you do. And I think as a citizen of Washougal, I would like to see a earnest effort to come to some agreement with the city.
Thanks, Ken. Any other members? Don?
Yes, I just agree with what's been said, but I really am disappointed that you decided to vote rather than clean up the process. I think we have a lot of that happening in our government, where you just sign it and we'll understand it later. And I never thought I'd see an example of that in Washougal, but I'm afraid I have.
Mike?
Okay, just a short statement. I have also attended Canvas's workshop. I heard far more over there, meaning we, Washougal Canvas, more about regional transportation, which is what this considers. Over here, I heard far more Washougal and far more enmity between the two communities. As far as I'm concerned, I want to see that abolished. This is about the region, that's all I'm gonna say.
Commissioner?
Mark Lampton, 814 West Y Street, Washougal. I thank the council for their wise vote, excuse me, this evening. Paul and Jennifer, you were just at the Camas workshop, and we are all in this together. And if you see where we're going with Port, where we're going with Washougal, Camas, and the RTC is the same thing. It's all about this region. There's 43,000 people in this taxing district, I think, at the last census. And that's not a lot of people. It's about 10% of the whole county. Together, I think we have a very good voice, and I think we have a great opportunity. But if we separate ourselves, if we become just these two small communities, we're not going to be able to move forward in a really productive manner. And again, I applaud you for moving in, I think, a productive manner this evening. So I thank you for your time. Nice work.
Thank you, Mark. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, before we adjourn,
Yes.
I would like to explain my vote,
Sure.
because I think it's been very much misinterpreted. This is, I'll read from a letter that I sent to Representative Cliburn, who heads the Transportation Committee in Olympia. Dear Representative Cliburn, at the 1 February meeting of the Southwest Washington Regional Transportation Council, to which Camas and Washougal City Councils recently appointed me as their representative, I voted against the resolution to approve the fiscal year 2012 Federal Transportation Appropriation Project request. This request contained 2 projects submitted by Camas. Please note here, I voted against the resolution, not against the projects. My vote having had unintended consequences at the state level, specifically the threat of removal of these 2 projects from the project list, I feel obliged to explain the reasons behind my vote. I would also request that you retain these projects on the fiscal year 2012 Federal Transportation Appropriation Project request to avoid inconveniencing the citizens of Camas and Washougal. I cast this vote knowing in advance that it would be in the minority. Despite my opposing vote, the resolution passed with overwhelming support. It never occurred to me that Camas projects might be removed at the state level, nor should it. According to the standing transportation project planning process, they shouldn't have been removed. The vote was intended to convey opposition to overbearing federal and state interference in what should be local decisions. It was misinterpreted as a vote against the 2 Camas projects. Specifically, my vote was a symbolic protest over federal and state inclusion of unnecessary requirements in the design of our transportation projects. In particular, it was to signify to federal and state authorities the need for local control over transportation projects. If we want bike lanes, road diets, roundabouts, and other aspects of the latest fads in transportation planning, we can include them in our projects. We're free to do so. They should not be forced on us by federal and state governments. In addition, I noted in the information provided by the RTC staff on this resolution that the fiscal year 2012 Federal Transportation Appropriation Project request is intended as a request to our congressional delegation to pursue earmarks for these funds. I believe strongly that the use of earmarks increases the possibilities of the misuse of our taxes. Because, however, my vote had the unintended consequence of jeopardizing funded for Camas-supported projects, I felt obligated to resign as their Southwest Washington Regional Transportation Council representative. My resignation was submitted on 9 February to be effective upon receipt. This vote has been widely interpreted as being against the Camas projects. It was not. Thank you very much for the opportunity to explain that, Mr. Mayor.
Dave, thank you for clarifying that. Any other items in the special meeting? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Switch your dates back there.
That is the special.